Seven-seaters in the Philippines have reached a peak, so to speak. You've got ground clearance, 1.5-liter engine, space, a more affordable price tag. And then as normal, we want even more. And manufacturers don't want to stand still. Now once 2020 hit, and by God did it hit, like a tequila shot followed by a ghost pepper, these two models are now hardened for the unknown path up ahead. And here are the results. This is the Mitsubishi Xpander Cross, and this is the Suzuki XL7. Two seven-seaters that kind of look like they spent a little too much time on the accessory aisle of your local auto store. Okay, so that was a little bit mean, I'll admit, but it's true though. These two guys have really a lot of new bits. Let's start with the Xpander Cross, which really looks more like a kitted out Xpander. It's got more ride height, more bits, more bobs, more masculine. Really, when this thing first came out, it struck a chord with a lot of people because it was really easy to love. Now, well, it kind of looks more like an acquired taste. More rugged now, but still techno-modern with LED headlights, DRLs, and fog lamps. You even get a faux skid plate and other shiny surfaces, a familiar dynamic shield, a nameplate like you're going back to school, and a very toothy front grille. Now, the XL7 looks different from the model that it's based on, which is the Ertiga. Now, instead of expanding on the Ertiga, the XL7 looks like it's been more reworked, and it is its own model. You get a redesigned grille, bumper, and headlights that are now LED. And you also get a set of LED DRLs, but with halogen fog lamps down below. It looks less tacked on and more integral. And like I said, it doesn't look like an expansion pack of the Ertiga. Under the hood, you'll find roughly the same engines. They're both 1.5 liters, 4-cylinder gasolines mated to 4-speed automatic transmissions that produce roughly about 100 horses and 130 Newton-meters of torque. It's inside the Mitsubishi that you will find a peppier drive, but a more economical one inside the Suzuki, possibly because of gearing ratios. Now in the city, you can't tell them apart because they produce roughly about 9 kilometers per liter, so that's pretty good. But it's on the highway where the gap really is huge, because while this guy gets about 16.5 kilometers per liter, this guy does 20. Now down the side of the Cross, it really has a lot, and I do mean a lot going on. It's got bigger wheels, higher ground clearance. It's really not everyone's cup of tea, an acquired taste as I mentioned. And if all this cladding really isn't for you, well, this is a Comparo after all, so On the Suzuki, you get less, much less. You get smaller rims, less ground clearance, less bling or ice or whatever it is the kids are calling it today. It's not bland, no, but I'll tell you this much, it's not uberly exciting. Two different designs here at the rear, but if you look at the rear tail lamps, it's sort of like the same shape is being used. Now, cargo space, very important. On the Cross, you're looking at 150 liters of space. On the XL7, the same 150 liters of space. That's with the third row up in play. Now, if you want sheer size on paper, the Xpander Cross has got tons of space for you to play around with. Fold the seats, tumble them forward, and you've got ludicrous amounts of space at over 1,500 liters. In practice though, the XL7, even with 803 liters of space on paper, they're both pretty similar. The only difference is the width and no tumbling seats. With the lips, the same too, same height, and the same cubby holes can be found on the Xpander. That's my iPad. On the Xpander as well as the XL7 to hide whatever little knickknacks you have. It's my wallet. What the hell is this Earl doing? Space in both automobiles is roughly the same. You got the same legroom, you got the same headroom. It's the elbow room that differs. Here in the Xpander, you've got just a little bit more. Now, the amenities in here are almost the same with your air vents up on top and ball holes on either door. What differs is the center armrest of the Xpander folds down with no cup holders, and you have access to the third row. Whilst in the XL7, when you deploy the center armrest, you do not have access to the third row. You gotta reach over. That's one. And the second thing is that back here for the second row, you got a 12-volt socket. Now, space in the third row for both automobiles is pretty much the same. You've got enough for about 2 small adults for jaunts inside the city and not much anything else. You've got bottle holders on either door. You've got a 12-volt socket in both automobiles, but the Xpander has 2 slight advantages, and I want to show that to you right now. Number 1 is that you've got leather seats even up to the third row, which makes cleaning this part of the car much easier. Albeit the leather, yes, is more on the durable rather than the plush, but still easier to clean, like I mentioned. And number 2, in the XL7, the seats do fold, but in the Xpander, they tumble, making getting in and out of the car much, much easier. Suzuki's really doubled down on the sportiness inside this automobile. This isn't real carbon fiber, by the way, but it does sure look good. You only have cloth seats, and the other side you've got leather, but at least these guys are actually very supportive. It's pretty much the same as it is in here as the Mitsubishi. You've got analog gauges that flank a digital computer. You've got buttons on your steering wheel. Here in the Suzuki, you don't have cruise. You've got buttons for your call functions here. Air controls found down here. 12-volt socket, USB port right here. You've got cubby holders with air vents. You actually don't know that you need them until it's a really, really hot day. Sadly though, you have a very, and I do mean very tiny center console here that really isn't even big enough to house Nemo. In the Xpander Cross, it's definitely tighter, neater, cleaner. I like it. There is definitely a lot of plastics in here, but I don't mind it. It's not half bad at all. It has a leg up on the XL7 in the term that the steering wheel moves up and down and toward and away from you, and it also has cruise, but a leg down in terms of infotainment system because that guy has a 10-inch, this one is only a 7. And there are also proper sized cubby holes, thank goodness. In fact, there are so many that there's even one tray underneath the passenger seat that can carry up to 2 kilos. I'm gonna call his mother. I'm gonna call him! You take my stuff, I'm gonna take yours, punk. Hide my stuff? I'm gonna hide yours, punk. Good riddance. Now, with both cars being in a similar category, it is safe to note that both are reasonably equipped safety-wise. You get much the same number of airbags, ABS with EBD, stability control, hill start assist, engine immobilizers, and both have ISOFIX tethers. But the Xpander Cross gets a bit more in the form of traction control and emergency stop signals. But the Suzuki has side impact door beams, so really pretty neck and neck. Now, we've driven both these vehicles on their own, but side by side is really where you can see sort of like some of the small little details kind of crop up on you. For example, the Xpander Cross. It actually feels more at home inside the city. And it is similar, of course, to the Xpander, which is to say that it's got a higher center of gravity and, well, it's a little bit on the bouncy side. Now, NVH at lower speeds is really not a problem at all. It's when you get a little bit faster where the wind and road noise come in. The wind noise, I kind of wish that they would have done something a little bit more about it. The road noise, well, that's kind of forgivable because you are, after all, on eco tires. The engine and its 4-speed automatic transmission actually responds pretty well, and it doesn't feel that underpowered. Well, granted, of course, it's just basically just me, Jack, and the camera equipment in here. But for what it's worth, it's not that bad. Now, in the driver's seat of the XL7, you'll notice that it's not as bouncy. It's got a lower center of gravity, and the car generally just feels that much lighter. It's very comfortable in here, even over bumps. Not to a point that you will actually forget them. No, not at all. I would say that it's just about at par with the Xpander. The NVH though, that's actually quite surprising. You'd expect the road noise, yes, because they are eco tires after all, but at higher speed, the wind noise, well, it remains constant. There is no high whistling sound or anything at all, which is absolutely great, especially if you want to keep the kids asleep in the back. I will say this though, that the acceleration, yeah, that takes a while, and it's most likely due to its gearing. So unlike the Xpander Cross, where it's peppier and it gets to speed much faster, this guy will take a little bit longer. But the trade-off is, at the very least, you get much better fuel economy, and that to me is A-OK. cars are so similar, it makes us think that Suzuki and Mitsubishi had a little powwow to talk about what their next model was going to be. That being said, that's actually where it stops, because now we're going to talk about the price, wherein the Xpander Cross comes in at 1,255,000 Philippine pesos, a bit steep, considering the Suzuki comes in at 1,068,000 Philippine pesos. Now that's a pretty big gap. In fact, that's a six-figure gap. Yes, granted, the Xpander Cross definitely has a more mature interior and a peppier drive. But on this side, well, you've got better fuel economy, features on the inside are much better, and a price that won't break the bank. The XL7 may be the new kid on the block, but it's definitely ready to stand toe-to-toe with the giants.